I've just kind of written the book that I want to write, and Purity was just the book that I wanted to write it. That I wanted to write it. I'm allowed to make up words. I'm a professional. But it was just the book I wanted to write at the time. It wasn't like I sat down and thought, enough of you magic stories. I want something about sex. It was maybe a little bit like that. But no, it wasn't an intentional thing. It's just the story I wanted to tell. So.
Okay, so, I asked people questions on Twitter, and they wanted to know if you were doing any more retelling, like Prime and Prejudice.
If I'm going to do any more retellings, I don't have any plans right now. It was funny because after Prime and Prejudice came out, a lot of people said they're going to do other Jane Austen, and I was thinking about it, but I'm only going to do something that's natural, and I have so many ideas of stories that I want to do, so that's what I'm going to focus on, but that doesn't mean that I might not at some point. Yeah, but right now, in the next couple of books, it will just be original from my head.
And I just read Belle this week, and I did not know going into it that it was a series, and so I finished the book, and I was like, that can't be the end. And so, how many books are planned in the series?
There's going to be 4 books in the Belle series, and the second book, Winter White, comes out this fall, and Izzy and Mira are going to Cotillion, and they both have very differing views on that.
So are all 4 books going to be from Izzy and Mira?
Yes, and all 4 books, each book takes place during a different season, so you'll get fall, winter, spring, and summer.
I'm really excited.
Thank you.
Okay, and then Ruby. Everyone loves Ruby. So is she based off someone that you know, and would you want to be friends with her?
Ruby, it makes me feel special and warm that everybody loves Ruby, because Ruby's probably the most me out of any character I've ever written. I kind of just did myself. I mean, not intentionally, but the more I wrote her, the more I realized that I was reflecting myself in her. So no, she wasn't after anybody specifically. That said, I have an aunt named Ruby, a great aunt named Ruby, who is hardcore Southern Baptist. And I didn't really name her after that, but then I was at my grandparents for Christmas, and my grandmother goes, "You know, Ruby, Jackson named a character after you." And my Aunt Ruby's like, "Tell me about it, Jackson." And I'm like, "Well, she likes to have a good time." And my aunt's like, "Well, I love to hear that." So that's Ruby.
Okay, and so to go out as 4 narrators, how was that writing 4 narrators?
I actually had a lot of fun writing the 4 narrators. It wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be, because when I was outlining, I knew when people were going to take over. So I did have to take a break if I was writing, because I was still working at the time. So I had these weekends where I had to write 10,000 words a weekend, and so I would finish up with Sophie, and I would have to take a break just to get her out of, especially her, because when I wrote Sophie, it was very funny. I was standing up straight and attacking the computer, and I'm glad and I would shut off my phone, because heaven forbid anybody called me when I was channeling her, because I would have been a little different than how I normally am.
She's pretty evil.
Yeah, but it's very funny, people's reaction, and knowing you're writing a character that people are going to have a very strong reaction to. And it's funny because I've seen online some people be like, "I don't like Sophie." I'm like, well, you're not necessarily supposed to like every character, and there are people in the world who are like that, and that's just, especially in that world, you're gonna not have everybody who has the best intentions. So, and I did have to take a break, and when I went back and edited the book.
Yeah, you make it up.
I know, make it up, edited that, and when I did that, edited it. I did take it character by character. So that was the only time that I just focused on one character to keep their voice and make sure it was really super consistent. But I did write chronological though.
Do you have a favorite one writing it?
I did enjoy writing from Sophie's point of view. I did. I don't know. There are things that I liked about each of them. And I kind of liked Ethan. I liked being an emo boy, being everything's wrong with the world. I just it was kind of fun to be be an angsty boy. It was really funny. I enjoyed it.
I like Carter.
Yeah, I really liked Carter too. I liked all of them.
Yeah, no, I did too. Okay, so you said there were 4, and the first one there's not a whole lot of romance. It's kind of to be continued. Mm-hmm. And so is that going to continue in the rest of the series?
Yes, but you're going to meet many new boys. Brayden is around, Kellen is around, but you'll meet new boys too, because
it's fun though.
It's fun that way. It is. It's fun.
Okay, so now these are going to be general questions. In Purity, she has 3 promises that she makes
Like, easy, because love as much as possible. She sort of forgets about that one, and it seems so easy, and that's why she finds it easy to forget about. And to live without restraint, I think that one's really difficult, but I think that one is a lot more achievable if you sort of, man up a little bit and are gutsy about it. But listen to your father. I mean, I had a rough time listening to either parent when I was in high school and now. So there's that, yeah.
I think live without restraint would be it. Because as a teen, I was very practical. I listened to my parents. I was the youngest. I was a good kid, pretty much, I think. And I was a pretty good kid. So I listened to my dad. And I had friends. I enjoyed things. And I think I was always very practical in terms of I have to know what I want to do, and when I go to even when I was in college, I was like I have to have 4 internships. It was always very and I loved writing when I was in high school, but I'm like, you can't make a living out of being an author. That's not practical. And I love music as well, but I can't be a musician because that's not a practical job where you get a 401k. I don't know. Now I'm self-employed. So you hit 30s and you're like, whatever. So I live without restraint now, kind of ish. I do wear a seatbelt all the time though. So yes, I do. I know. I get made fun of because I don't drive a lot, but when I'm home and my dad was like, "Oh, can you back the car to the garage?" I'm like, "I'll do it." So I never drive, and I put my seatbelt on. My brother's like, "Really? You're going 20 feet?"
I just had a habit though.
Yes.
I'm like, we're putting this on.
It's
feel
good.
uneasy if it's not on.
Kids always wear a seatbelt. Don't text and drive.
Always.
PSA brought to you.
Same as Elizabeth. I was very practical in high school too, and
I also you are invited to my parties. Just FYI.
Well, no,
you
me
can come
now. Now I am.
Now it's different. But back then you probably wouldn't have had me at your party. I was so by the book, goody two shoes. If my mom said be home at 10, I was home at 10. I told her where I was going. If for some reason the plans changed, I called home to tell them where I was going now instead. But I was very practical, but I still thought being a writer could be a practical job. I just thought I was going to be the editor-in-chief of a newspaper, a big newspaper. So I'd still get paid well. But definitely without restraint.
Newspaper reporters get paid so well.
I thought
But as a
Lois
kid,
Lane.
I know, please.
Lois Lane made money, I'm sure
She
of
did.
it.
Yeah,
I'm
she
sure
had a
of
nice
it.
house. She had
She
that
did.
house
She
that
has a nice
Superman
house.
flew and she had overlooked the city.
It looked beautiful.
It did.
I
Right?
figured she made money.
That is not a newspaper reporter salary. Maybe in Gotham. Wait, is that Gotham?
No, Gotham.
No,
Not
Metropolis.
Not good.
Metropolis. Sorry.
Metropolis.
If you could only read one book for ever, what would you guys?
One book forever.
I don't reread books actually, so I would probably just read a book and then I would just be sad. I mean, I guess I would read it again because I didn't have any other choice but to read whatever I had chosen. But there is not one book that I would. There truly is not one that I would pick. I very rarely reread books. Very rarely.
I reread The Hunger Games right before I saw the movie for the second time.
Yeah.
But I never do.
Because you're seeing the movie. It was for a reason.
Yeah, but I can't remember the last time I reread a book, except for work purposes, when I used to be a publicist.
Yeah.
I've reread Harry Potter's before the movies come out, and I will reread all the Harry Potters because once my 7-year-old can read them with me, I'm looking forward to that.
Fun.
He's not allowed to watch the movies though till we read the book, so we'll have to start.
But would you just read them of your own volition? Just feel like you're reading? I feel like people in the industry are like this a lot, other writers, and part of it is because there's other stuff I want to read.
That's the thing.
Stuff is coming.
I feel it's a luxury to reread, and I feel like when I have a nightstand that's this high of books that I want to read within the next couple months, not the 2 bookshelves that I have of books I want to read.
Yeah.
That I feel like
there's no time.
Yeah, but I don't know what I would reread. I don't know. That's really hard. That's a mean question, actually. It's a very
It
mean
wasn't my
question.
question.
Yeah.
Blame Twitter.
Twitter. Whoever's for Twitter. Why are you mean to us?
You're out. We're unfollowing you. Hashtag
No, it's a good
blame.
question. I just can't think of. I don't know. I don't know. Because I really love The Book Thief, and I want to read that book again. I think that's a brilliant book, and I think out of any books that have been published in the past 10 years, it's one of my favorites. But I don't think I could just only read that book because it is a tough book. Narrated by Death, but it's really it's a well-written story. But I don't think I could do it.
And are you good? Are you good? Like you didn't replace
character. I think my first book, Lonely Hearts Club, the character of Penny and Tracy were very much my two sides. Especially Tracy was my snarky side, you know, like I'm just a very sarcastic person sometimes, obviously, but in Take a Bow, I think Emmy and I have very similar things that we've gone through and very similar insecurities, I think, so yeah, probably those three.
And for me, as strange as it sounds, Caitlin in the Secrets of My Hollywood Life series is probably the most like me. I was a teen star, you didn't know it. But no, because she, you know, she spends all of her teen years living with restraint. She never stands up to her manager, she never stands up to her mom, she one and the same, her publicist, and I had a hard time in high school doing that. So I feel like there's a lot of me in her, even though she's the starlet. And Izzy and Mira, I think there's pieces of me in both of them. Izzy's who I wanted to be in high school. She always said what was on her mind and she stood up for herself. I was more like Mira, but way less cool. I mean, I was very proper and I kept it together, but I wasn't at the popular table.
Were you a cool kid in high school?
No, I was
really?
Not a cool kid. I was in that
I
marching
feel like
band.
you'd be
So was
cool.
I, but you were
What'd you
close.
play?
Clarinet, then Tri-Towns my senior year.
All right.
I wanted to be
Way to
with
go.
the boys.
With the boys in the compression line.
Yeah.
No, but I will say I had such a big school that there was a popular crowd, but I had friends. Like I had a lot of friends. I didn't hate high school. Some people like oh god, high school was the worst time. It was fine. Like I had friends, but no, I was definitely not a cool kid. I can tell you that right now. Yeah, that's the thing.
I was fine. I was middle of the
Yeah, I
road.
was
I
totally
had
fine.
friends, but
Yeah.
you just wouldn't have found me like,
Uh-huh.
at the popular table.
No.
The popular table.
Alright, one more question. What is the best writing advice that you've ever gotten?
The best writing advice that we've ever gotten.
Elizabeth's. I like Elizabeth's advice. It's my favorite. It's to spend a day with every character that you're writing and almost like living in that character's shoes. When you go to Starbucks, what they'd order at Starbucks, what they'd wear when they're going to work or to school. And I like that. I think that's
It
a really
wasn't
good
it
tool.
was advice an editor gave to me when I was working on my first book, because she was like, the characters are there and they're not fleshed out, like what would be in their closet they wouldn't want people to know about, what would, so then when I was commuting, I would kind of pretend that I was sitting next to the character and like what we would talk about and what we would, and it just helped me. So I do spend more time with each character before I start writing down. I have my notebook that I used to write Take a Bow, it's just filled with notes before I typed out a single word, just to like know them. Because then I feel like you find out things that are good plot points then when you're like, you have a secret and I know it and I'm gonna expose it in fiction because you're a fictional character, but I think you're real.
Then you take your pills. And you
Yeah, and then I'm like, I'm precious. Yeah, no, yeah. Authors are a little nuts.
Mine, it comes from Carrie Ryan, but I know she heard it from somebody too, and I don't remember who she said she heard it from, but that it's very easy to talk about writing and to dream about writing and think about writing and tell people that you're writing a book and to, I have this idea that one day you're going to write a book, but it's very difficult to actually sit down and write the book. And so that must be done. That's an essential part of it. It is much like exercise in that you can't pay somebody to do it for you, unfortunately, unless you're a very, very, very good well-known author. Maybe sometimes you can pay somebody to do it for you. But yeah, like it's your story. It's in your head, and you're the only person that can get it out. So it must be done. It is the evil.
That's the thing, is like when people like, what advice do you have for writers? The first thing I say is write. And they think that's weird, but in my previous life as a publicist, I worked in publishing for a really long time before I became a writer. Everybody would be like, I have an idea for a book. How do I get it published? And I go, that's not the question. The question is like, you need to write the book first. And it's funny because Alice Hoffman said the same thing. Like, everybody wants to be an author. No one wants to be a writer. Like, people think like we do have the best job in the world, but we also spend a lot of time alone in a room. Like, maybe we haven't bathed in a while, or that's just me, and sit underneath a desk crying a bit because you're stuck. But like, you have to do the work.
And it may never be easy, but it has to be done. And I always tell the kids that you gotta write as much as you can, as often as you can, and it may not be comfortable. Well, you may be more comfortable the more you do it. It just may never be easy. But you'll get more used to doing it.
Right.
Yeah. I went to one of my first speaking engagements. I was at the school, and it was a university, and I was giving this talk about how to get published and sort of a variety of things. And one of the guys in the class raised his hand and raised one hand and said, how do you find the time to write? And I'm like, I find it. I can find the time to do it. It's somewhere. And he's like, well, here's what I do during the day. And he like ticked off everything he does. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Find the time. Or we all get the same amount of time in a day. We all get 24. I don't get a bonus hour to write with, like an extra one. I don't watch a lot of TV. I have a very, very regimented, not schedule, but there are like 4 or 5 things that I always make time for, like eating, sleeping, exercising, and writing. And then sometimes it's just eating and writing. And that's how you have to do it. And it's not easy and it's not hard. And he got so mad at me when I said that he had got up and left. And I was like, are you going to write your book? I didn't really say that, but that's what I was thinking as he left. I was like, you just gave an hour, use it, man.
Yeah, use it. Yeah.
But